This is Amud Yomi, Gemara Berachos, Daf Mem Beis, Amud Beis. We pick it up from the top of Mem Beis, Amud Beis. We are 4 lines from the top in which the Gemara begins discussing the din of the Mishnah. The Mishnah taught us in the beginning of the Mishnah that if one is birich al yayin shelifnei hamazayin, it patters up the yayin shel achar hamazayin. So says the Gemara Omar Rabba Bar Chana. Omar Rav Yochanan Lo Yishanu Elu B'Shabbos V'Yom Tovim. The din of the Mishnah that when you're birich al yayin lefnei hamazon, you make a bracha on the wine before the meal. It patters up the wine even after the meal. Says the Gemara that is only on Shabbos and Yontif. Why? Hoyel, since va'adam kaiveya sudas al yayin. Because on Shabbos and Yontif, an integral and critical ingredient in the meal is yayin. And therefore, when you have wine before the meal, what's in your mind, what's the stam das, we can maybe call it, is the wine during the meal. But the rest of the year, mevarich al kol kais v'kais, you should make a bracha on each and every kais that one drinks during the meal. Itmarnami says the Gemara Araya to this. And the Bryce adds on one extra detail. Not only Shabbos and Yontif, but rather when one leaves the bathhouse, 2 other times that it is common to have wine to give the body more chizik. Because, as the Bryce says, like we just said, from Rabbi Chanan Rabbi Yochanan, Hayel Vadam Kadeh Sudas Al Yain. And the Gemara proves this with a raya. We're about 10 lines down. The first line is called Kais v'Kais. Rabba Bar Mari Rava Bechol. He went to the house of Rava during the week. Chazi Devarach Lefnei Hamazon, and he saw that Rava made a bracha on the wine Lefnei Hamazon before the meal. V'Hadar Barich, and then Rava went and made a bracha on the wine Lachar Hamazon. Amar Lei. So Rabbi Mari said to him, Yasher, Givaldik, you did the right thing. Chena Rav Shimon Levi, and so too Rav Shimon Levi said the same. Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef, and again, this just proves the point that we just said at the only time. The bracha on the wine before the meal patters the wine after the meal is only on Shabbos and Yontif when you have that das, but during the week when you do not, you have to make a bracha al kol kais v'kais. Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef, Abaya of Yontif, he went to the house of Abaya, the Heilige Abaya on Yontif, and what do you see? Chazir Debarich, Akol Kasa V'Kasa, he saw him in a bracha in each and every kais. Amar Lei, he said to him, Losav Lamar, Ladu Rishub and Levi, did not hold Rishub and Levi that on Yontif, it's normal to have wine, and therefore you do not have to make a bracha in each and every kais. Amar Lei, Abaya said, yes, I concur, be'etzim. However, Limna Chana, I changed my mind because I changed my mind. Therefore, Abaya said, I have to make a new bracha. Continues the Gemara, approximately 20 lines down. The first word line is Lahadr Rishub and Levi. Ibayi Lahu asks the Gemara Akasha. If they made a bracha that was brought to them during the Suda, would that patter up the wine that one drinks after the meal? So what's the shayla? The Gemara explains. Tim Salayim, if you're going to say that it's like the Mishnah that what? Why? The reason is because when you made a bracha before the meal, you were doing it to drink, lishtais, for no other ulterior motive. Similarly, when you're drinking l'achar hamazayin, you're doing it lishtais, and therefore the bracha beforehand patters the bracha during the meal aval. But what is our case? What was the shayla that was posed? The bracha that you made prior was lishtais during after the meal, whereas the one that was done during the meal was lishrais, was to soak up, was to satiate, was to allow to eat more food. So there are different motives of the bracha on wine. During the meal, you want it to lishros, you want to soak up the food, allow you to continue eating. Whereas after the meal, it's lishtais, it's just a drink. So if there are different motives, maybe you would, yes, have to make a new bracha. Idoma lo yishina. That was the shayla. And answers the Gemara about 15 lines before the Y lines. The first one in line is Shana. Rav Amar Pointer says, Rav, a bracha made on wine during the meal indeed patters the bracha on the wine after the meal. Rav Kana Amar Einoi Poiter. Rav Nachman Amar Poiter. V'shis Amar Einoi Poiter. Rav Yudah V'chamin Rav Amri Einoi Poiter. So we have a slew of Amarayim on each side of the coin. Tanayim, Rav Tana Upolig, of course, and whether the bracha does indeed patter or not. So says the Gemara, Isvei Raval Rav Nachman. And with this, we're going to wrap up the first part of today's shir. As we get to the two dots, we're about 10 lines from the white lines. Rava asked to Rav Nachman, who is the one that said that a bracha on the wine during the meal indeed patters lachar hamazon. Says the Mishnah, lachar hamazon, said our Mishnah, one bracha makes for everyone. So what do we see? We see that the wine that's lachar hamazon is seemingly continuous of the wine during the meal. That you have wine during the meal. Everyone makes their own bracha. Then they have wine la'achar hamazon, and therefore one person says for everyone. But the question is, why? Why are you making a bracha at all? You already made a bracha on the wine during the meal. So what do we see clearly? We see clearly the bracha on the wine during the meal does not pater on the wine la'achar hamazon. Amar le, Rav Nachman said, no kasha achi kamar. You know what the Mishnah meant? Im loi bolhem yain b'toch hamazon, elo la'achar hamazon. If they only brought them wine, not during the meal, but only after, then echad v'varech lekulam, and that's the way that Rav Nachman teaches up the Mishnah, and therefore there is no kasha at all. We continue 6 lines from the wide lines as we quote the next part of the Mishnah by the 2 dots that says, Birach alapas, poiter sapaperes, alaperes, poiter sapas. So says the Gemara, what exactly did Beis Shammai mean when he said Afloi Maisa Kedera Yibayilahu? And the Gemara poses this 3 lines before the white lines as a kasha, or shayla, I should say. Beis Shammai Arisha Polig Oidelma Seifa Polig. And in classical Gemara sense, Gemara now goes one step deeper and explaining what the shayla is. The Tanakhama said you make a bracha on bread, it patters up the parperes, the side dish, the auxiliary dish. What does that imply? Vikol shekena, what does it patter up? Maisa kedera, it patters up porridge, other oatmeal types of food during the meal. Meaning, if the bracha in the past patters up the side dish, it certainly patters up the maisa kedera, which is at a form of a main dish. Vasi Beis Shammai l'meimer, on that detail, Beis Shammai argues and says, no, not only, says Beis Shammai, does the bracha on the parperes not is not pattered by the bread. Alafilu maisa kedera nami lo pater. Meaning Beis Shammai is arguing in Gansin on both cases. Oidelma seifa pligi. Maybe Beis Shammai is only arguing the seifa the Ketani. The seifa said birach al parperes lo pater sabas. If you made a bracha on the parperes, it does not pater up the pas. So says Beis Shammai, pas. That's what the Tanakhama would mean. The Gemara does not have a teretz, and the Gemara says, Teiko, we're going to have to wait for Eliyahu Navi to answer up this shayla. And we'll end off today's shir 4 lines into the wide lines, one more shtickle Gemara. We quote the Mishnah, and the Mishnah says, if they're merely sitting, and again, we have to orient ourselves, that Bisman Chazal, there was yeshiva, there was a seba. Yeshiva was a lack of kviyus, was that you're not together. A seba, when you recline, then it's a form that everyone is together. So said the Mishnah, if you're yoshvin, then everyone should say their own bracha. If you're miseba, if you're hasef, if you're reclining, then you could be yotzei one another. So says the Gemara, hey sebuin, well, you say below. It sounds like you're only potter if you're reclining. Veremin will ask you a stira. If 10 people are traveling on the road, even though they all eat from one loaf of bread, each one should make their own bracha. They sit down to eat. Now, even though each one is eating from his own loaf, but because they're sitting, says the Braisa. So what do we see? But we see clearly in this Braisa, sitting is creating a kviyas, even without reclining. Answers the Gemara 6 lines on the bottom. Amram Nachbar Yitzchak. Kigayin da'amri mezel v'nechel achma b'duch plan. The Braisa that says that sitting is a kvias, and one person does pater another is when they said, let's all go sit down. So if you said it and then you went to one area, then there's indeed a kvias even by sitting. And the Gemara proves this with a story. When Rav was nifter, other Talmidim were walking behind the nifter, behind the coffin, behind the mace. When they came back from the Kvura Amri Nezav and Echalachmam and Har Danak, they said, let us go eat after they already ate, Yasi become a Bailan. They sat and they were wondering, hey, when do we say is only a sebu, but not if they're yeshiva, if they're a sitting cell, one person should not make a bracha for everyone to a berachos hamazayin. Oidelmo, the Talmidim Arav declared and said, wait, maybe because we said, let's all go sit and eat over there. The Talmidim Arav didn't have an answer. Come, Rav Adav Rav, one of the Talmidim got up as we turn over to Mem Gimel and Aleph and says, Rav Adav Rava, you should turn around your shirt and tear another kriya. Why? Amr, they said, and our Rebbe Rav has died and we don't even know the halachas of berachos hamazayin. We should tear another kriya. Then not only did our Rebbe, it was nifter, but we don't even know the halacha. Adasa Usab, an old man came along, and he said, like we just said, he has to see her to the Mishnah, the Brayso of Shanlu, and he answered that if you said we're going to go eat together, that's enough. If you could make a bracha, proving the terrors that we just gave, that by saying it, it's a kid, and it's similar to reclining, and you could, yes, be moitzi one another, one person, echam avarech lekulam. We'll pick it up in the two dots in the next year, b'siyata dishmaya.